comment in the chat box. So just say hi or hey or something in the chat box, and that'll record that as being here, just to make sure you get credit for it. Because I think this does go down as some professional development, because I got to send it over to the PD team. So just make sure you log in there and say that, and I'll say it again at the end. All right, welcome. I'm not going to say that I'm an expert at any of this. I'm going to say I'm probably about a day or two ahead of most of you. I've just watched the videos that the district put out. That's what I've done, and tinkered with it a little bit. So we'll walk through it. I think rostering your Google Classroom is going to be the easiest and the most beneficial for everybody that hasn't done it or learned it. The syncing the grades will be great if you had done something like that before. We don't have to mess with spreadsheets or CSV files or anything like that anymore. It's automatic now. So there are some limitations to it at this point, but you know, it's still better than what it was, and it's going to make it a little bit easier. And understand, this isn't anything that you have to do. This is all optional as far as your grades and Classroom and SIS and all that. I think it's just another tool that the district finally got done with the SIS vendor and Google. So we'll go from there. Any questions up front? All right, let's get after it. First thing we're going to start with is rostering your Google Classrooms. If you have already invited your students, that's fine, but there's a super simple way now to roster your classrooms. When I say roster, I simply mean inviting all your students to your Google Classroom without having to give them a code, without having to find any emails or anything. It just does it for you automatically. So the first thing you need to do is you need to have Google Classrooms created. So I'm going to walk through one of mine. I've only done 2 of my classes, and I'll walk through one of mine and show you exactly what I'm doing. So if you want to, you can also pull up one of your Google Classrooms, one of your classes, and open SIS and go through it and do one class right now while we're doing it, so you know how to do the rest. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and present my screen and show you. All right, are you seeing my screen? No, not yet. Hold on. All right, it says I'm presenting to everyone. All right, so let me open SIS. All right, are you seeing my screen? My SIS? Okay, got no audio from anybody. All right. All right, so I've already done that class, so I'm going to go to 5th period. That's one I haven't done yet. Okay. So you need to go into Gradebook. And if you haven't been in SIS yet, or very little, you see that it does have a little bit of a different look to it. They kind of updated a little bit now. But the first thing you see different is you see this Google Classroom link class tab here, or button here. That's new. So I'm going to go back over to Classroom. I don't think I have it open. Nope. And make sure you're using the standard format for naming your classes now that they want, which is your name, underscore, P for period, then the number of the period, underscore, and then the name of your course. So I'm doing 5th period. So you can see that name there. That's the standard format that you need to use. So you have to have your class created already before you can roster it or link it from SIS. So I'm going to kind of go slow here in case you don't have it done. You can kind of do it as we go along. Okay. All right, back to Gradebook. And, you know, I'm looking at my regular screen also. So if anybody has a question, you're going to have to unmute and yell it at me, because all I see is what I'm showing you. Let me jump over. No, so Tazeen, I'm not seeing the chat and the screen. I'm just seeing what I'm sending you. So if you do have something, you know, unmic yourself and or unmute yourself and yell it out to me, and I'll see if I stop.
Okay.
All right. So once you're in Gradebook and you have your class set up, your Google Classroom set up, you go into Gradebook for that period, and you see the link class. And it's super simple. Click on the link. It's going to ask you to select a Google account. I've already done it, so my name's already there. You probably got to go through the format of once you click on that, it says choose one, and finding your school email address. Don't use a personal Gmail because it won't work then. Right. And once it finds your school email address, it'll just say select the classroom. And this down here will be all your Google Classrooms you have open and not archived. So I still have some I haven't archived from last year and some other ones that I use on a regular basis. So I am doing 5th period. So I just click on 5th period, and then click on select course. Actually, I should have went to Classroom to show you. Yeah, let me go over here. So if I go into people, you'll see there's nobody there. There's no students. But when I linked it over here, in a moment when this finishes, it usually takes about half a minute or a minute to do it. It'll put all those students in there automatically. So I don't have to worry about any code. I don't have to find any email addresses. I don't have to do anything. It just takes it from SIS and puts it in Google Classroom for that period. And that's it. And you're done at that point. The student still has to join, but it's super simple for them because the next time they log into Google Classroom, there'll be a new class there. It'll be your class, and all they have to do is click join, and they're in your Google Classroom. No code, no entering anything, no emails. It's just already there. They click join, and they're in. And
so many of my students are already in, and a lot of their parents. Yay.
Yeah, and I did that there. It just said mine's completed, sent invite to 29 students, sync completed. Close that, and I'll jump over to Classroom, and you'll see that they're all there. Now, what I don't understand is how some were already in there. Right? Somehow they already accepted their invite, yet I just sent it. Not sure how that worked. Doesn't bother me, but, and you can see that they're already joined because their name is darkened. It's not grayed out like these other ones, and you can see their Guardian invites. It will not automatically invite Guardians. You still have to do that yourself, but it will automatically populate your Google Classroom with your students from SIS, and they're in. Now, the next time Allie here goes into, or Amani goes into Google Classroom, she'll see my class there, Spencer, P5, AP Psychology, and she just has to click join, and she's in. And that's it. It's as simple as that. And then I could go and do my next class. I could jump over to 6th period and do the same thing for that one there. Right. So that.
So Spencer, I have a question.
Go ahead.
So I have IB, Econ, HL, and SL put in as one class in my period 4, but on SIS they put as separate classes like Econ 1 and 2.
Yeah.
So how do I put them both in the same Google Classroom, and then the grades would be separate?
Yeah, I was just talking to Dan Zeitz about this. He's going to do one Google class for all 4 of his classes that are the same class, and I think you can still sync them with grades. It's just you're going to have to sync them individually still. So you're going to have to go into SIS for the SL class and sync them, and you're going to have to go into the HL class and sync them also. But I think you should be able to be okay with one Google Classroom for HL and SL for that period.
Okay, thank you.
Tazeen, if you, I mean, there is a way to combine your grade books if you like use the same grade columns for all of your classes, if that makes sense.
I use the same, like I had the same issue last year, but I had to go to different, there are different classes on SIS, so I had to go to each one and put, I didn't know how to combine the classes. The entries were the same though.
I know it's in the settings of SIS. I'm looking now. Does anybody else know off the top of your head?
I know I've heard it done before, but you know, I had the same thing last year with one student that was SL and the rest were HL, and I still went back and forth.
Mm-hmm. Well, all of my grade books are a hot mess. I have so many different levels in all my classes. I'm sure it's somewhere in under SIS, you would go to My Information and then Preferences. I'm sorry, I would have to spend a minute looking, but it's there. I'll keep going, you guys. Oh, I know, it's right there. Okay, so it's My Information on the left, and then Preferences. And under Display Options at the very bottom, it says Configure gradebook separately for each section. Yours is probably checked, so you'll have to uncheck that.
Where at?
Okay, SIS on the left, go to My Information, and then go to Preferences.
Yes.
And then at the very bottom, you have Combined Sections for taking attendance. That should be checked. And then under Configure gradebooks separately for each section, you would uncheck that if you wanted them to be in all one gradebook. That would be one gradebook per class, not per like all of your gradebooks.
So Stephanie, should I go ahead? Do I have to be in that class on that period to do this, or is this like generally?
No, that's general. That would be all of your classes.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So checking combine and uncheck configure.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So that was the easy part. Any questions on rostering your Google Classrooms from SIS? It's pretty straightforward, pretty easy. I think that's going to be what everybody will use because it's super simple and it's done, and you can roster all 5 or 6, 7 of your classes in a matter of minutes, and you're done at that point. Okay. No questions. All right, let's move on.
Dennis, when we automatically do this, if there are schedule changes, do they automatically leave or add to our?
Sorry, I should have had my document up here. So I do have a note down here. What if a student's enrolled in one period and moves to another period? They will be automatically removed from SIS as usual. That's how we normally do it. That's how it normally functions. You don't have to do anything with SIS. You just get the little notification that says, you know, so-and-so has dropped from your course. But it doesn't remove them from Google Classroom. You still have to manually remove them from the previous Google Classroom. So let's say you have someone enrolled in 5th period, you roster the class, it invites them, they join your 5th period, and 2 weeks from now, they move from your 5th to your 1st period. Well, SIS is automatically going to drop them from 5th and move them to 1st, but Google Classroom won't. So you'll still have to go into 5th period Google Classroom and manually remove that student. Now, when you sync the next time from 1st period, it'll automatically invite them to the Google Classroom for 1st period. All right. But when they move automatically in SIS, they don't move automatically in Google Classroom. So you still have to manually delete them from their previous Google Classroom, period. Okay. All right, so let's talk grades, because this is probably it may not be what most people use, but it's probably the more efficient aspect of this new integration aspect. So let me go back to my document here. So you can actually kind of do it 2 different ways. You can do it directly from SIS to Google Classroom. That's probably the easiest. But you can also do it from Google Classroom into SIS. But there's a few things I'll say up front to make sure we understand, because it's not a seamless integration, at least at this point, because not all of the data that you create when you create an assignment in SIS syncs over to Google Classroom. Okay. So as far as like topics, most people have topics in their Google Classroom. You divide your classwork up into topics. Those don't sync up exactly. So we'll go over a couple examples, and I'll show you that. I just want to say up front, you know, there's a few things that aren't as seamless as we'd want. And also there's an issue with weighted versus non-weighted courses. Some of us use weighted courses, some of us use non-weighted. Some of us, like me, do both. In my AP class, it's weighted. In my IB class, it's non-weighted. If you are non-weighted, it's super simple. You You know, it kind of matches up and you really don't have to worry about it. But if you are weighted, then there's a little bit of a workaround that you got to do, but it's not difficult. Also, I have on here, make sure students understand that their actual grade is always what's in SIS, not GradeQuick. GradeQuick is not our grade book. Especially, as I say, if a teacher does not link all of their grades, which you don't have to.
You mean Google Classroom? You said GradeQuick.
Oh, sorry. Google Classroom. On my screen, it's GC, so I guess I turned it to GradeQuick. Google Classroom. So not all teachers will link every single grade, and you don't have to. So some students will see a grade in Google Classroom and think that's their grade, but always remind them that it's what's in SIS, because that's the official grade book that we use. And so just so they don't get confused, don't do that. Down at the bottom of this document, which I'll post in the professional development Google Classroom, I did want to tell you where you can find this information that I'm showing you in the videos that I'm talking about from the district. There's a link there, or you can go directly from Gradebook from SIS. So if you're in the home page of SIS, down on the very bottom right is SIS support and resources. And there's a link that says SIS Resource Center. If you click on the SIS Resource Center, you scroll down, there's a link for SIS integration with Google Classroom resources. Click on that, and it's the exact information that I'm talking to you about today. There's 6 or 7 Google Docs here that tell you exactly what I'm telling you. And there's a couple videos that you can watch and go over the exact same things that I'm telling you. They just go in a little more detail. Plus, they have a mock grade book set up in SIS. I don't, so I can't do the exact examples that they can, because unless I want to start assigning my students some assignments right now, and they start getting emails and everything about grades that are already due. I don't think I'm going to do that yet. So I'll kind of try and show you examples. So there's 2 different videos. They did one last Monday on just the rostering that we did a minute ago. That's the part 1 video. And then there's a part 2 video, which is the grade syncing that we're talking about right now. So a couple different ways to get to those videos and those documents. 1, through the document that I'm presenting from now, and 2, straight from SIS. And if you ever have any question of where those are, that's just the district's EdTech site that they use for all their technology information. Okay. There is an SIS training tile in your portal, but I went in and messed with it today, and there's not much I can do with it. I can assign assignments, but I can't link it to a Google Classroom, so it doesn't really help me for today. I was hoping I could make a fake Google Classroom and use that training tile, but it doesn't seem like it wants to let me, so we'll go from there. All right, let's see what else we got here. So the topic and categories, not all the information syncs over, so you got to kind of work with it. So let me go into my grade book and show you how to kind of do it to set it up. So I've already linked this class here, this 5th period class, or the 2nd period class. You can see that it has this unlink also, if you want to unlink it. So that shows that I've already linked it. Anytime you hit this button from now on, it'll automatically go to that Google Classroom that it's synced to and pull any grades that are there that are linked to this class. Every time you hit that sync button, it'll go to that Google Classroom and pull the information over. Old information that was there before, and any new information that you put in, any new grades or anything like that, it'll pull it right over. Right? So I want to add an assignment just like you would normally do. Let me just give it a name. I'll call it quiz 1. Right? I'll give it 30 points. No, I don't have any categories set up yet, so I can't do that. Probably the most important feature is third-party system. Right at the top on your adding an assignment is third-party system. When you click on that, you see Google Classroom pop up. So if you want to set up an assignment that is linked to Google Classroom, you're going to need to, from the beginning, from SIS, you're going to need to click on Google Classroom there. Right? When you click on Google Classroom, you can then choose which periods it's linked up to. If it's just that period or if it's other periods, just like you would normally do with an assignment. There are a couple tips here, though. Make sure that the due date is in the future, which it normally automatically defaults to that. And the publish date is beyond that. All right, so the publish date has to be past the due date, or it won't sync correctly. So that's one thing that they wanted to make sure people knew was correct. Right? So,
Dennis, can I stop you a second?
Yep.
Well, number one, can you go back to that screen again? Sorry.
My grade, yeah.
Like creating a new assignment.
Yeah.
What does publish mean?
Publish is the date that they officially see it in SIS. So I can create an assignment. I can create an assignment in SIS today, but if I don't want them to see it yet, I can put the publish date for next week, and they won't see it until that publish date occurs.
Mm. Okay.
And that's been there since we've had SIS. Just a lot of people don't know what it means.
Yeah. So, but you have to have it later?
Yeah, the publish has to be later than the due date, I believe, is what they said.
Okay. Okay, got it. So I just wanted to point out real quick to Zine and anybody else who has a combined grade book. Well, he left it again, but over there on the right where he
on the
where he selected, when he selected sections over there to add it to, that if you've combined your grade book, all of your individual sections within each period will be listed here. So he just has like all his periods, but it'll have like, for mine has like 1 million over there listed on the right.
Yeah.
And sometimes that'll translate well with this, and sometimes it just doesn't. So.
Okay. Thank you, Stephanie.
Okay. Good. Let me jump over, make sure there's no other questions. All right. Good. So then you can go the other way from Google Classroom to SIS. Now, also understand that you must return the assignments in order for the sync to work. If you've graded in Classroom before, if you've graded in Google Classroom before, some of you might have graded work in there and then never returned it. There's an official return. It's almost like if you gave a worksheet in class and you graded it, but you never handed it back to the students. The students won't see their actual grade until you return it to them. So for this sync to work, you have to return an assignment to the students. And I'll try and see if I can go to an old class. I have one up here. I think I do. Yeah, right here. So let me see. This is all from last year. I think I was messing with one down here earlier. Yeah, here we go. So this is one that I did back in February, and I graded all 20. So you can see that they're graded. That means it's returned to them. So if you've graded in here before, you might have been used to grading here or here. You might even opened each individual assignment and graded there. But there's a button up here that says return. You have to return the work to the students for the sync to work. For SIS to be able to grab the grades from Google Classroom, you have to have returned the work to them. Otherwise, it won't grab it. It's almost like it's not graded yet, according to the syncing process. And there's a way that you can grade everybody's paper and then return them all at once. That was more that previous page I was here. So if you grade everybody's assignment, you can then click all students and return them all at once. And that's just like you hand back all the graded papers at one time. But I just want to make sure everybody knows that you have to return the work before the sync will work, before it'll get that. Okay. There's some error messages that they talk about, assignment errors, due date, publishing date, things like that. That's what I mentioned before. Make sure the due date is in the future and the publishing date is beyond the due date. You will sometimes get a warning message that says some information does not sync, especially assignments and points in Google Classroom. Don't worry about that warning message. It's just telling you that not everything you create in SIS as far as points and topics and categories moves over, right, and syncs automatically, right? I said grades only sync one way from Google Classroom to SIS. They don't the other way. You can create assignments either way. You can create an assignment in Google Classroom and link it to SIS, or you can create an assignment in SIS and link it to Google Classroom. But the sync only works technologically from Google Classroom to SIS. SIS reaches out to Google Classroom and grabs what it gets and pulls it back over. All right. There is some other issues with changing grades, right? If you change grades, be careful because let me do it both ways. Let's say you grade something in Google Classroom, and then you sync it to SIS. And then you go in and you change the grade in SIS. You're like, oh, this student did something different or got a different grade. You change it in SIS. You need to also change it in Google Classroom. If you don't, every time you sync, it's going to go get the grade from Google Classroom and replace what's in SIS. So if they got 40 out of 50 in Google Classroom, and then that got synced to SIS as 40 out of 50, you said, oh, actually they made a 45 out of 50. You go in SIS, which we normally do, and you change it to a 45. The next time you sync, it's going to grab the 40 from Google Classroom and bring it over again. So you need to change it in both places to make sure you're aware. And unfortunately, as of the presentation I'm giving you now, there's no way to divide up the sync by quarters or semesters either. So it's always going to go, when you sync, it's always going to go back and get all grades for that student and bring them back over. First quarter, second quarter, third quarter, at least as of right now. They're working on that, but right now it doesn't work that way. Okay. And I guess it's the other way too. If you, I guess it's going to always grab the correct grade from Google Classroom if you change it in there and pull it over. You just have to make sure you're aware of that. Unlinking an assignment. Let's say you created something in SIS and linked it to Google Classroom, and you want to unlink it for whatever reason. As of right now, there's no way to unlink an assignment except for duplicating it in SIS and then deleting the original one in SIS. So if you create something in your gradebook, you create an assignment and you link it to Google Classroom, and then you sync and it pulls the grades over, and you want to unlink it, the only way to do that is create another assignment in your gradebook in SIS, duplicate that information, the title, points, in every student's grade, and then delete the original one. As of right now, they're saying that's the only way to unlink an individual grade from this standpoint. Okay. Trying to think of what else. I wish I had some practice gradebook to show you what it would look like and pull it over, because it is super simple. It just pulls your grades over from when they're done, and it's as simple as that. Oh, so yeah, let me go back to the weighting because I know that with a lot of people. So if I create an assignment in here, again, we'll call it quiz 1, and I give it 30 points. I'm going to attach it to Google Classroom for second period. Okay. When I do that and then I sync it, it's going to go over to Google Classroom. And if you don't have a topic called quiz 1, it's going to create a topic called quiz 1 for you in Google Classroom. Right? So that's one of the downsides of the link right now, because they don't match up on everything. It isn't as seamless as we'd like it to be at this point. So where's my class?
Then can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
So if I'm understanding correctly, if I call something quiz 1 in my grade book, I have to make sure I call it the exact same thing in Google Classroom.
Yes. Yeah. So one workaround they're talking about, because, you know, like in most weighted classes, you have 3, 4, 5 weighted categories. For example, in my AP class, I have homework / classwork, tests, and then participation. So if I'm always labeling it that in SIS, it's going to send it over to Google Classroom. One thing they say is you can just leave that category in there. Let's say I had a category here of, let's do a topic. I'll say topic instead of category. Homework. It's always going to add it to that section if that's what it's titled in SIS. You can always take that assignment and move it to whatever topic you want. So I guess it's not going to move it. You can move your assignments around from one topic to the other. Maybe I need one that's done. So you could always do that, and that would work there. My best guess is going to be kind of to work with it. You can always delete a topic. You can always go in and delete a topic, but it's going to come back the next time you do that again. So there is a little bit of an issue with weighted versus unweighted, and that's something we're just going to kind of have to work around at this point.
Can you go back to the screen that's where you created the assignment?
Here?
Right there. So where it says assignment category, like that's where I would have homework and classwork, writing.
Yes.
So do I have to put it in that category, or it's going to go by whatever I titled it?
It's going to go by this category. The title is going to be what you would see under here.
Okay, but it'll put it in the right
there, but it's going to put it in whatever category is on that page. Whatever assignment category is here: tests, quizzes, homework, classwork, participation.
Okay,
that's the topic it's going to send it to, is right here. So if they did an update on this, that would be one area that I would like to change is create this, topics here instead of, because if you automatically link it to Google Classroom, your topic should show up here. That would be, but these are two different vendors. One's Google and one is, SIS. So, two different vendors. They weren't really meant to be together in the beginning. So we don't, so if I'm calling something quiz 1, is it always going to go into my 10% quiz category for grades? And if I'm calling something, essay 1, is it always going to go into my writing category, or? It's going to go into whatever category you pick over here.
And then what's it going to look like on Google Classroom?
It's going to be whatever this title is.
But I don't.
It's not going to change your weighting at all in Google Classroom, because Google Classroom, at least at this point, doesn't do anything with weighting.
But in Google Classroom, my topics are different than my assignment category. Like you have there, online instruction is your topic in Google Classroom.
Yes. Yes.
But those assignments that you have in there, how does it know what category to put it in, or am I going to have to shift things around?
You're going to have to shift things around that way.
Okay. And that's just the drag and shift?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
That's one of the limitations right now of it. But again, you're not having to download to a.
I don't have to do the CSVs. I'll drag and shift.
Yeah. And we'll kind of work with it now. Now, if you have something created in here already, if you have something created in Google Classroom already, when you create in Gradebook, once you click on Google Classroom as the third-party system, you'll get another linked assignment where you can just pick what assignment you already have in there. If you've already created the assignment in Google Classroom, they'll start showing up right here. And you can just pick that there, and it links that assignment in that category in Google Classroom already. So that might be the better way to do it, I think, is go from Google Classroom, then create the grade in SIS. And that might be the way that they stay together in that way.
I have a question, Dennis. I don't usually put quiz and tests on Google Classroom. I mean, we don't create those categories on Google Classroom. So how is that going to, do we just manually put that on SIS?
What do you mean?
What I'm saying is we don't have categories for quiz and tests on Google Classroom normally, right?
I mean, you can if you want. I usually have by units. Mine are usually by units. And then I have a, you know, a class information one.
I mean, I usually just put homework on Google Classroom. Quizzes and tests are like different things.
Yeah, I just use the word quiz just for an assignment. I could title it anything.
Okay. So if it's not on Google Classroom, we just go ahead and create the quiz or the test. It's not going to sync with Google Classroom.
Yeah, so if you add an assignment in here and you're doing a quiz and you don't want it with Google Classroom, you just don't click on the third-party system.
Gotcha.
And then it's just a regular grade in your SIS. It's not going to go look for the grade in Google Classroom.
Got it.
So that's the beginning. You don't have to link everything. You don't have to link anything if you don't want to. But if you are grading in Google Classroom, which a lot of us are now, this is going to be an easy way to get grades from Google Classroom to SIS automatically instead of having to do it by hand.
Got it. Also, could you just go steps 1, 2, 3 for the weighted one? I kind of got lost there. Just for the weight, how to add the weights.
So the weighted one is definitely going to be one where you're going to have to drag. It's going to put it in here somewhere, and you're going to have to drag it to the whatever category, whatever. Let's say, you know, what topics do you usually have, Tazeen, in Google Classroom?
I usually have like classwork and homework.
Okay, so is that one topic or 2 different topics?
There are several topics of homework in a unit.
No, I mean like I have Unit 9 Social Psychology here. What would your topic be?
Okay, so Unit 1, for example.
Unit 1, okay. So if you have weighted categories, how many categories you have? 3, 4?
4.
4. So whatever category you pick that as, when you add the assignment right here, that's where your 4 categories will be. Whatever you pick as that category, that's the topic it's going to create in Google Classroom for you. It's going to create a topic for you. And then you can take that assignment once it appears here, and you can move it to whatever other topic you want to move it to. So that's the one downside, is you're going to have to manipulate the topics and categories because they aren't seamless yet.
Okay, thank you.
All right, let me see if I covered everything there.
I'm sorry, Dennis, I had a question if you can hear.
Go ahead.
I joined late because my internet went down.
I like the excuse. Party.
Do we not have to use the CSV file? Isn't there a different way, the syncing? Is that a separate way to sync grades?
Yeah, that's the way we did it previously. So you finish with a grade in a class in Google Classroom, and you download it to a CSV file. Okay. And then you manually upload that to SIS using that CSV file. But then you got to change their student ID because it has the S on the front, and you got to do this, and you got to save it here, and then you got to go find it. This just makes it easier to grab those grades.
Okay, yeah, because I was watching Angelina's presentation before, and she apparently uses the CSV files, but we can just use the sync option, can't we? Isn't that easy? Okay.
Yes, this eliminates the CSV file.
Okay, that's kind of what.
And that whole process is gone now, unless you want to do it that way.
No, I don't. It looks like a very convoluted way to do it. I just want to be sure. Okay, thank you.
All right. Again, I wish I had some mock classrooms and grade book to do, but in the videos they do have some mock classrooms in there, even though there's only like 1 student in the classroom and the grade book. But at least it shows you the grade being taken over and how to name it and the topics and move it over in that process. And again, it's pretty simple. I would say the only thing you got to worry about really is the weighted versus non-weighted. That's the only really issue that we're working around right now. I still think it's worthy of doing that if you're doing most of your grading in Classroom. It's going to be much easier to get it over there. Christy, can we rearrange the order of the topics in class? Yes. If so, could we bump those categories and topics down to the bottom? Yes, but if I remember correctly from last year, yeah, you got to move it down, and it only moves it down one. But I guess if you keep moving it down, it'll stay at the bottom, maybe. And you can keep it down there. But you're still going to have to go grab them from those categories and move them up into the correct topic. So you could do that. It's a matter of moving them. And maybe they'll switch it up. I do see in Google Classroom, though, there is, I think it's in settings. There is weighting here. But I don't think it works with SIS syncing yet. So I know it's there, but I don't know if it works yet. So at least they're saying right now it doesn't work. So that's our only issue. Yeah, so you're going to have empty boxes there, or you're going to delete it, or always have them there, and just tell them it's going to be there, and you'll just move it. You know, at this point, you can just move it. I think that's in my weighted classes. I think that's what I'm going to do is I'm just going to leave them up there, and they'll know not to really pay attention to that because, you know, hopefully I'll just move it over. I don't know. We'll see. You know, we'll see how it goes. I just know this is going to be easier than the other process. Okay. All right. Anybody else? Any questions? I'm going to mess with it and get using it early on and see how it works. And if you have any questions, please come to me. Watch those videos. They'll explain it a little better than I did because they can show you examples of it. The rostering one, I would say you probably don't have to watch that one. It's about 30 minutes. They do cover a section on creating a Google Classroom, which I don't think most of you need at this point. The one tip they do share in that one is making sure that you go into your notifications and turn off your notifications that you don't want to receive. I can't remember where the notifications are on here. But there's a way. Oh, I know where it is. Go to classes. I believe it's over here. No. There, maybe it's settings.
If we go back to where you were at the bottom. Yeah.
Yeah, on the bottom of your dashboard, there's a settings at the bottom that does the notifications that, you know, we learned about last year. You don't want to start getting emails from all these kids when they just comment on a post or do something else, or from other people. Or if you're a co-teacher in another class, you want to turn those notifications off so you're not getting tons of notifications when the other teacher students are turning their work in. So that's one thing it does talk about in that other video. So I don't think anybody really needs to watch the rostering one, but that second video, that one's worth to watch because it does show examples of syncing grades. So it's this part 2, SIS Google Classroom integration part 2. I think it's about 55 minutes. They do go kind of slow, but they do it nice and easy and pretty simple. There are documents that show you exactly how to do it step-by-step with pictures. So create assignment, SIS. Let me click on it. And I'm going to have all these posted in the professional development classroom page also, or at least a link to them. And so this is the same thing that I just did. You go in to your grade book, to the period, and you add an assignment. You select third-party Google Classrooms. It tells you it's not going to take all the information. You select your section you want, and then you sync it. Later on, it'll say sync completed if it's graded in Google Classroom. So there are Google documents for every one of these step-by-step if you want to access those also. There's even one on how to view and grade work in Google Classroom, because I know everybody kind of did it differently. I was kind of showing you how I did it. I would typically go into the actual assignment. You can go to grades up here and go to that individual assignment and grade it simply there and just put the grade in there. You can click on each student. Let me do one. These are a little older. Go down here. Here we go. So I could go to each student here and open up their actual document, view the submission, or I can just change the grade right there. or going to the document. I usually graded it per document because you can toggle between the documents really quickly up here on these arrow keys. So you can look at their assignment, put the grade in down here, and then when you're done with that student, you just click the next arrow and it goes to the next student. And I would just go through the whole class grading that way, and then go to the assignment and return it to all of them. So there's a couple different ways, and there's a document in there that shows you how to get the grades, how to grade an assignment there. If you want to look at that one. So there are a few documents there. All right, so I think it's a matter of, trying it out, playing with it, seeing how it works. I still think it's better than what we were using. So hopefully this will help. You can all now, if you haven't invited your students, you can all go roster your Google Classrooms in a matter of 15 minutes or so and have them all done, and all the kids are invited. And you'll be surprised how many are sitting right now waiting for that invitation so they can join the classroom. Not that they're waiting for work, but they're waiting for their invitation now that they know their schedules. So, and somehow some are already accepting the invitation before you even invite them somehow. I don't know. So.
I noticed there's a Google Meet link, and if you want to have a Google Meet link, then it kind of creates one.
Yes, and you can turn that on and off too.
Turn it off?
Yeah, you can display it or not display it.
Right. But last time we were told, like, if you give a nickname, then the students won't be able to come in unless you're there first.
Yes.
So if you do create this link, are they going to be able to enter before you? I'm wondering.
I think it's the same. I can't remember. I thought it was the same for each one, or it's always the same one, or you can change it each time. I know I did see somewhere where it said, don't leave it up there, or take it off if you don't want them joining, and then you can always display it when you want to.
And you can click that visible to students. I thought that's what they said. Just shut that off. And
you can turn that off, and then they don't even see it anymore after that. You still see it, but you see the little I crossed out. They don't see the link anymore, so they can't click on it. And then if you wanted to click on it and go to a Google Meet, you would just go in and take that off.
Okay. Got it. Thank you.
Okay.
Hey, Dennis, it's Becky. I have a question. I have a friend who teaches at another school, and she creates one Google Meet and just stays there and has her students from every single class come in at the appropriate time. That sounds, I don't know, kind of nice, like we're in our classroom and students come and go, but what do you think about that?
The only thing I'm unsure about is the recording. Because you're supposed to have an individual recording for each class period that you can show evidence of. That seems like it'd be one long recording.
Right. Okay.
But you can start and stop your recording, right?
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, maybe, I don't know, during the passing period, so to speak, you could turn it off.
But then you also gotta post that recording, Stephanie. And if 7th period wants to see their recording, they got to go to the end of that recording.
Oh, you don't think it would make separate recordings?
I don't think so. Not if you're staying live with it. I don't think so.
Huh.
Because it's one session. I have a feeling it'd be one session because you're not stopping the recording. I think you're pausing it. I don't know. I've never tried it that way.
Yeah.
You may also want to avoid doing one long recording, because if there's any problem with that recording whatsoever, it screws up everything for that day, as opposed to having individual ones which can be saved, passed on, etc.
Right.
Yeah. So if something happens with 1st period, I could probably replace it with 2nd period's recording and send it over.
True. Okay. So have you found out anything about groups? Are we going to be able
yeah, we're going to do a practice session on Wednesday if anybody's interested. Wednesday at 3. I have found 2 different ways to do it. One is an extension called Google Meet Breakouts. I think it's a purple extension with a little lowercase b. It seems really seamless. You just click and drag students into groups, and it puts them into individual breakout groups, and you can jump back and forth. You can have all 4 or 5 groups on your screen at once, and it seems very seamless and perfect. But the downside is it's an extension, which means it's not supported by Google. It's some guy that developed this extension. So he's the only one that's in charge of updating and the keep of it. Now, he has updated a couple times already since June and fixed some of the bugs, and it seems to work really well. But it is an extension. There is another way to do it where you just create 3, 4, 5 different Google Meets, and you give the students the link to them, to all 4 or 5, and you tell which students which link to go into. And then you have basically 4 or 5 tabs at the top with different Google Meets going on, and you can jump back and forth to whichever meeting you want to check on their work and see what they're doing. So
that sounds.
We're going to try and set up a practice session on Wednesday at 3, and see what we get. So I would say maybe download the extension. I think it's called Google Meets Breakout Rooms, and I believe it's a purple icon with a lowercase b. And we'll see what we get. We'll just mess around with it because Google Meet does say they're coming out with it any day now. They're coming out with their own native breakout room format. And it should be any day now. I've heard some say that it's going to be October, but it could be tomorrow for all we know. But this other extension might be our stopgap until Google Meet makes an actual Google supported breakout room feature.
Well, we'll probably be back in school by then, so it won't even matter.
Well, if we are, it may only be some. So you're still teaching.
Right, true.
So,
Yeah. Because I was told today when I was up at school that after Labor Day.
Yeah. Who knows? Who knows? Yeah. So after Labor Day, we're back in school, and then 2 weeks later, we're back out again.
Back home, yeah.
So,
Yeah. Very true.
yeah.
Okay.
All right. Tara just shared YouTube video for breakouts. I don't know which one. Is that one I was talking about, Christy? Do you know? Maybe, maybe not.
Yeah, it is. We played with it a little bit in the English meeting this morning.
Yeah.
And so there were some kinks to figure out. For example, like, you know, all of the reverb and like the, you know, sound from people being in multiple meetings. And so you just have to practice with knowing who needs to turn off what microphone and stuff like that. But that video that Tara shared has kind of like a step-by-step, like a how-to.
Okay. So. Okay. Good. Yeah. And so that's why we set up the Wednesday at 3 thing. It's nothing. It's not really professional development. It's just we want to set up a session where we have some participants and we can kind of divide people into groups and just see how it works and mess with it and see if it's anything we want to work with, or if it's easy, or if it's, you know, crap or whatever. So anybody is welcome to that Wednesday at 3. Wants to come in and sit and look, or, you know, if you want to download the extension and you want to take your hand at it after a while when some other people mess with it, you know, hopefully we'll have enough people to be able to do that. All right, that's it for me, unless anybody else has any other questions.
Dennis, I was having a problem with my screen earlier. Did you get my message? Texted you. I just asked. I missed the beginning part about how to move your roster over from SIS into Google Classroom. If you could just quickly run me through that.
Oh, just the rostering.
Yeah.
Yeah, super simple. So you have to have your Google Classroom.
Anybody else has any questions? If you want to wait until that's over, everybody else heard that part. You know, if there's somebody else with a technical issue, they can ask. But I'm just asking for that one thing when we're wrapped up.
Yeah. Anybody else? Anything?
Dennis, are you going to send out an invite for that? Get
it's
together?
already on the sheet that Angelina sent out.
Woo, awesome. Thank you.
So search for Angelina Professional Development, your email. It's on that sheet, and you can just click on that link and join on Wednesday. All right. Thanks, everyone. All right, David, it's super simple. So just make sure you have your Google Classroom created first. Here, I'll show you. I'll just do it because I still have some that I haven't done yet. So let me go back to my classes. So I haven't done 6th period, I believe. Yeah. So if I go to 6th period, I've created my class with the standard naming format. There's no students in it right now. There's no students, right? Go to gradebook. I need to go to 6th period. And you'll see a cool new little icon called Link Class. You click on Link Class. The first time you're going to do it, you're going to have to link up your school email address. Don't use a general personal Gmail. And once you do that, you click what Google Classroom you want. I want 6th period. I hit select course. It'll sit there for about a minute, I think it takes, as it populates your roster. And in a minute, my 6th period will be full of students. 6th period, I think I had like 28 in there. So as soon as it does that, so a couple things about it that you might have missed also is that if somebody gets moved from your,
you have to manually move them over, remove them. I saw that.
Yeah. Okay. So as soon
It
as
doesn't bring the parents in, you have to add them.
it only does students. It
Right.
only does students. You still have to manually invite the parents, and that might be that, you know, that parent letter that we were talking about this morning, where you put the Google code in there.
I'm going to put a Google Classroom, you know, separate thing typically for, I'm just going to make a junior one and a senior one and say, I'm going to put all my parents in one. So it's so easy to email all at once.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Let me ask you a question about the grade importing and whatnot. I mean, does it seem?
Hold on. Here, if you look there, it syncs completed, 29 students.
Yeah.
And I go back over to here. There's all my 29 students already in there. And then when they go into Google Classroom, the next time they go in, all they got to do is click join. They'll see my class there, and it'll say join, and they're in.
Okay. I think I can remember that. As far as the importing grades, I mean, I use weighting. Do you think at this point it's a little more trouble than it's worth to let the kinks get worked out more or less? I'm worried about, you know, like the wrong grade being imported a second time. Again, let's say I decide to give Johnny the benefit of the doubt, change his grade, or, you know, just the other things I heard. For me, it made me skittish about doing the grades aspect at the moment.
Well, I think any grade that you sync with GradeQuick or with Google Classroom, I would just say when you change it, make sure you're changing it in both places, or more importantly, make sure you change it in Google Classroom, because that's where it's going to pull it from. If you change it in SIS but not in Google Classroom, it's always going to revert to what's in Google Classroom, because that's where it's always pulling it from. It's going to override it. So if you change it, if it's a synced one from Google Classroom, make sure you change it in Google Classroom, because that's where it's always going to pull it from.
I don't know. It just sounds like right now it's a little more trouble than it's worth.
Now, well, were you downloading CSV files and
No.
doing that? Yeah. See, so you didn't know what that was from before. So this is still much easier. You probably weren't doing a lot of grading through Google Classroom.
I had a weekly assignment that all they were doing.
Yeah.
And I just manually entered it.
So if you're doing, you know, most of your grading through Google Classroom, this is definitely something that's going to make it more efficient.
Well, I'll tell you now. I mean, if I was standing in front of a class and getting papers back from them, you know, I wouldn't be using Google Classroom for grades pretty much at all. While I'm virtual.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, and it's still personal, you know, preference. You can link them all. You can link some. You can link none. So it's completely up to the individual person that decides what they want to do.
Okay. Appreciated.
All right. Oh, Kara joins right at the end. All right. Anything else? All right. I think we're good. So I got to run through it all again, Kara?
No, I was waiting to get to the advanced part.
The advanced part. The whole thing was advanced.
Dude, advanced for them, but not for me. Come on, tell me one thing you taught that I don't know.
Well, this was all the SIS integration.
Oh, I already did.
Yeah, then you're good.
I'm good.
It was just me. It was me telling everyone what I saw in the videos that I watched the other day.
That's awesome.
That was it. Rostering your grade, your Google Classrooms, and pulling grades over, and that's pretty much it.
And all right, so yeah, I guess I should have been here. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I'm recording it. You can watch it later.
Yeah. So what's the thing Joe was talking about that's tricky if you weight your things?
Yeah, so if you use weighted, you know, when it grabs it from Google Classroom, it doesn't really know what's weighted and what's not weighted. So it's going to create some topics for you in Google Classroom based on your weighting categories. And you're going to have to move them from those topics in Google Classroom to whatever topic you want it to be in, because it isn't a seamless integration. So let's say you have one category is classwork, you know, and you select that when you're making an assignment in SIS, you're going to select classwork because that's the category it goes in. Well, when it takes it over from Google Classroom, you don't have classwork over there. So it's going to create a topic called classwork in your Google Classroom. And so when you go into Google Classroom and see that assignment, it's going to be in a new topic called classwork. But you can always move that assignment from that topic to any other topic you want.
Got it.
So there's a little bit of movement and manipulation that you'll have to do if you use graded or weighted, sorry.
Okay. Yep. That's what I kind of figured, but I appreciate you.
Yeah, no problem.
Yep. Thanks, Dennis.
All right, you're welcome.
Bye.
All right, I'm out. Peace.
Don't leave.
I'm still here. I just stopped recording, so you can say whatever you want.
Good. That's what I was waiting for. No, that was pretty helpful. Thank you.
No, I haven't stopped recording. I stopped presenting.
Oh.
Let me stop recording.